Okay, in this second part of aspect in English, we're going to first review that aspect is a morphological marking on the verb, and it's a way to for a speaker to describe the event. Maybe it would be helpful to think of it as whether the event is bookended, whether it's bounded with a bookend at the start and a bookend at the end of the event expressed by the verb. So looking at our examples from last time, she is crossing the street. If you picture that, you may have seen her start crossing the street, but if you say the words, she is crossing the street, you haven't seen the bookend of that crossing event ending. The event isn't bounded on both sides. It's unbounded. It's still progressing. It's still unfolding. In contrast, if you say she has crossed the street, if you picture that, the crossing has been bookended when she has reached the other curb. And when you say the sentence, she has crossed the street, you're telling the listener that that event is bounded. It has started and it has stopped. Even though, as you can see, it's in present tense. It's in present tense, but you're talking about the event as bounded, as bookended, started and stopped. Okay, we talked last time about how there's, when we have aspect, there's two parts. There's an auxiliary, which is be for progressive, and have for perfect, and there is also a suffix marked on the verb. We have the ing for progressive and the ed for perfect. This is two parts, which makes it a little bit tricky, especially for non-native speakers. And we talked about how present tense and past tense can be combined with aspect, and it will be present and past tense will always be marked on the verb. This is why perfect aspect is not the same as tense. It's as we said, it's a way of viewing the event. Aspect is a way of viewing the event, not related to time. Okay, we talked about how we have to be careful because both of the auxiliaries used in English aspect can also be used as a main verb if they're by themselves. And we stress that tense is going to be marked on the auxiliary. If there's more than one auxiliary, tense is going to be marked on the first auxiliary. And again, we want to be careful that we don't call this, the endings don't refer to present or past tense, because tense is marked on the auxiliaries when we have aspect in English. And we had the example, I knew the answer, simple past versus I have known him for a year. And this is the idea that the perfect suffix is not the same as the past tense is more clear with irregular verbs, like the example. So, big picture, when in grammar books, they might combine tense, aspect, and even time, but as linguists, we can recognize the patterns and the features of the tense and aspect system. And they can be identified as separate concepts, and we can recognize those patterns and how they work within the system. Okay, couple test yourselves. I'm going to give you a question, and you are to decide on the right answer and you can pause the tape and decide on the right answer. In the sentence, I have checked the exam very thoroughly, you want to look first at the main verb. What is the main verb here? It's checked. Okay, so does checked have an auxiliary? Yes, it's have. Oh, well, if we have an auxiliary, we might want to think about what aspect might be being used in this verb. Oh, we have the have auxiliary. That sounds like perfect aspect. Does it also have the ed, en perfect suffix? Yes. So the auxiliary is have. That was a very thorough example. Let you test yourself again. This is just asking again for the auxiliary. Okay, in this one, there are no auxiliaries. How do you know? Well, there's only one verb, are, and that if there's only one verb, it must be the main verb. And remember, that's called the copula. And in this sentence, there's no auxiliaries, so we also know that there can't be aspect. Now, in this question, I want you to tell me what the aspect is in this sentence. Now remember, we only have two consistently marked aspects in English, progressive and perfect. So we're not going to talk about tense, present or past tense. We're just going to talk about aspect. This is perfect aspect. It has the have auxiliary and it has the ed, en suffix. Okay, next one. What aspect is in this sentence? Again, we're only asking about aspect. Is it progressive or perfect? Or none? Well, it looks like it might have progressive because it has the ing ending, but in order to have progressive aspect, we also need a form of the be serving as auxiliary, which we have. So this is progressive aspect. Okay, last test yourself. Which of the following sentences have aspect? Okay, in this one, the answer is D, only B and C. A does not have aspect because there's only one verb, the had, and that's being used as a lexical verb. Okay, now let's move on to the uses of aspect. Last time we went over the different ways we use progressive, and now we're going to go through the perfects. Now, remember the directions. I want you to write your own sentence using the correct form of the tense aspect we are talking about, and make sure that the meaning expresses the use under that. Okay, so next is the uses of present perfect. Well, the first use of it is to express a past event where the effects of it are still being felt. They have lost my application. Okay. You write your own example that expresses both that form and that meaning. Another time that English users use present perfect is a reoccurrent event perfect. For instance, we could say, we have gone to church every Sunday. We have gone. We have the have auxiliary, and we have, this is an irregular verb, so it's gone, rather than an ed, en ending. Write your own example. The third use of present perfect is the perfect experience. It's saying that I have the experience, or in this case, my niece has been to Paris. It's in present tense, but it also has perfect aspect. Let's compare that to my niece went to Paris. And that's going to, we're expressing something a little bit differently with has been to Paris. And the fourth one is the perfect of recent past. Sometimes we use present perfect to express an event that has been really, really recent, like a bomb has exploded at the Boston Marathon. We could say a bomb exploded at the Boston Marathon, but that doesn't give us the meaning of recent past. Make sure that you're writing your own. So what is the form of present perfect? You can write that there. And what do you think about the meaning of this tense in terms of actual or non-factual? Are these sentences that we have written, did those events really happen? Yeah, they're actual. Are they close or remote? Now this is kind of a tricky one to answer. So let's compare present perfect to past perfect. If I say, they have lost my application versus they had lost my application? Which feels more close to you? The present tense, right? So here we would say present perfect is trying to express something a little more close, but are these events complete or incomplete? When I say they've lost my application, no, that losing part is completed. It's bookended. It has happened. For a bomb has exploded in the Boston Marathon. That explosion, that event of explosion is bookended. It's completed. So it is complete. Now what about, we have another use of present perfect. This is for a situation that began in the past, but it's continuing into the present. The professor has talked for the last hour. Again, it's write your own example. So although the form is the same, we have the present tense form of the auxiliary, has, and we have the perfect aspect. It's a little bit different. So think about that. Now we're going to move on to the use of the perfect aspect. Now, the perfect aspect is only used in one situation. It's a situation that is in the past that is even earlier to another past event. Now, to illustrate this, I recommend that you make a timeline. So I'm going to just insert a line. And in this timeline, if we had to say, if we look at all the verbs, we have had felt, right? And the exam began, we have another verb, and she was fine. So we have 3 verbs in this sentence. Where would you put them on the timeline? Each of those verbs. Well, the first thing that happened was Nancy had felt nervous, right? The past perfect. Then the exam began. The simple past, and then she was fine. Again, simple past. So because we have these events that occurred in the past, because right now the speaking part would probably be more to the current time, because we have these events that happened in the past and we want to express when the feeling part had happened, it's even earlier. So we use the past perfect. Do the same thing with the professor was pleased that all the students had passed the exam. Where would that fit onto your timeline? So the had passed happens first, right? First the students passed the exam, and then the professor was pleased. Okay, so what's the underlying theme or meaning of the past perfect aspect? What's the commonalities? Well, the form is going to be the have plus the verb plus the ed, en, and these are always going to be actual events. Close and remote, again, depends on if it's present or past, and these are going to be completed or book-ended events. So those are my examples for the perfect aspect, and you can use this as an example to complete the collaborative ones on the simple tenses and on the complex tenses. Look at those handouts that are in the module with those and fill those out collaboratively with your classmates. And we'll talk about this more.